I'm Oliver Herbert, and this is Living the Classical Life.
Oliver, thank you so much for being here on Living the Classical Life. It's a delight to welcome you.
Thanks, happy to be here.
And so we have the unique distinction of welcoming onto the show someone who actually apparently kind of grew up knowing about the show. And it's not that many years later, but in that short time you've found success on world stages. And why I particularly wanted to invite you on is because when I look at you and the way you project yourself, it's not really the typical expected, how would I put this? You're not a pushy person, you're not pretentious, you don't talk about yourself ad nauseum like I do. It seems like you're always able to be yourself and you found all this success. Do you consider yourself a shy person? And there's a specific reason I ask this.
I do consider myself shy in some senses, I think, or somewhat introverted, I would say. But I also love people, and I need people, and I love making new connections and being around people, and I feel like I'm also a very social person, so I would best describe myself as maybe a social introvert.
What I'm wondering, is a shy person necessarily going to be more nervous on stage? I mean, were there times that you were nervous on stage?
Well, I don't know. I feel a lot less shy on stage than in general. And I don't know. I think also we change over time. I find myself becoming less shy socially in general as I, especially in the past 2 years or so, I really have noticed myself changing. So I think these things aren't absolute. And I remember a great story by one of my mentors at Curtis, Pam Frank, because I actually asked her about this, because she is somebody that is so vivacious, and so she walks into a room and somehow has this energy, and she's so personable and social, and I always admired that quality. And I asked her about it. I said, have you always been this way? And her response was so funny. She was like, no, actually, I used to be really shy, but then I just decided to practice not being, and then I became not as shy. And then I just kind of took a double take in my mind, and I said, wait a second. So you actually, I couldn't believe her basically because of the Pam that I know. It just seems like innate. But I think what she said would kind of in that moment taught me a lot, because these things we can always, sometimes we decide that we're one thing, or we're going to be, this is who we are, and we label it, and then it becomes fixed. But really, I think a lot of these things, there's no reason why we can't become different versions of ourselves depending on what we want and what we need in order to navigate the world that we're in.
As you were growing up and you were a student, did you look to certain musicians, certain types of musicians, I guess she would have been one of them, certain types of musicians, and you'd say, that's the type of musical life that I want for myself? And why? Why would that be?
Yeah, well, again, I think I always kind of looked up to the people that were playing the pieces that I wanted to play. So, the Dvorak concertos, and then eventually, once I discovered and fell in love with the 20th century repertoire of people that were, playing Dutya concerto, or then, people that were playing the C.P. Bach cello concertos, and the whole amazing world of the period instruments. And so I think as I discovered all these things, and thanks to the internet and all these things, when I first started listening to music, I had 15 CDs and a CD player, and I would kind of religiously go between them, and I was in love with that, and that was a beautiful thing. But then at a certain point, I all of a sudden had all this access to the whole world out there, and I think, so the people that had a very diverse career of doing many things, playing, a spectrum of, let's say, 400 years or more worth of music, those were the kind of people that I thought, wow, I can see myself doing that too, because I think my interests in terms of the music are very broad, and I think I tend to approach pieces, whether they were written today or 300 years ago, with a sort of, I like to approach it with a certain level of freshness and kind of inspiration, like present inspiration, those people that were always playing many things, inspired me. Also, another person that inspired me, well, yeah, I think, so different musicians for me had different qualities that I really appreciated. For instance, Rostropovich commissioned so many pieces, for the cello repertoire, both in terms of concertos, sonatas, solo works, and a lot of my most favorite pieces belong to that body of work that he was involved in. So for that, and of course his extraordinary presence in musicianship, I admire him. I admired somebody like Yo-Yo Ma, of course, for his playing, but also for that kind of open-minded focus that he has across eras of music, and also across disciplines, and his openness as a person, and having met him a few times, feeling like when you speak to him, you're the only person that exists somehow, that the focus is so that every person that he speaks to, I think, feels very important, and that quality, that human quality. I admired Stephen Isserlis because I just thought his playing was so beautiful, and the way his concept of phrasing and sound was something that really spoke to me. So all these people, and the list could go on and on and on. Those are only cellists. but there are so many others, and each person has a different quality that I think speaks to me, and that inspires me. And I do, hopefully, I'm in the process of finding my own things that I can contribute as well.
So Oliver, I noticed that when you post something on Instagram, instantly 260 people click like in the first 5 minutes. I post something on Instagram, 26 people like it in 24 hours. Is that because I'm dark and brooding and you're optimistic?
I'm not sure about that. I don't know.
I mean, when I spend time with you in person or in the concert hall hearing you play, it strikes me that you're exuding joy. Is that the way you go through life?
Yeah, for the most part. I mean, I think I take a lot of care to, for me, I take a lot of care to just myself in general. I mean, musically, but in all areas, to kind of, I feel like what we do as musicians is also very related to our general state of mind, and I find that in order to really prepare to play and perform at the level that I want, I also have to have a certain peacefulness of mind, and so I am constantly doing things to try to maintain that and in order to be my best. Well, such as first of all, knowing the line personally, and it's different for everybody, of how much work is too much work. I am not a fan of over practicing, and I feel that if I want to enjoy playing and I want to feel good playing, I also need to feel that when I'm practicing. So if I'm working on something and it's just really difficult, things aren't working, and I'll usually just put the cello away and maybe try again tomorrow, or go on a walk, or, I don't try to push through frustration. I just let things evolve at their own pace, and also making sure, it's just simple things. Enjoying my food and my friends, and I walk a lot. I've been running quite a bit recently,
I saw that.
And that's also been something that I have enjoyed. I didn't think I would ever enjoy that, but somehow after a few weeks I really do. So things like that, and just so that I can, in all areas, whether I'm playing or not, just trying to be my best for myself, but also for people around me. I don't want to weigh people down or be, that's, I think my biggest fear in life is making people's lives harder, or I very much see my purpose as trying to contribute my best to everybody around me.
So if we're trying to gauge how much is too much, say on a daily basis, that would be mostly, I would guess, a matter of intuition. That's what it is for me. But are you ever afraid that with the successful trajectory of your career, that too much will be thrown at you and you can't necessarily say no? I guess that's somewhat the role of management, and you've already landed major management at this stage of your life. But are you afraid that you will have to do more than you want to do?
Well, I think it's a constant discussion, and a constant gauging of what is too much. And I actually feel up to this point I've been very lucky that things have sort of happened in a way, in a sweet spot, where I've had the right challenges at the right times, that I'm always trying to rise to the occasion, but never out of proportion to what I'm ready for. And I hope to maintain that. And it is a discussion, especially for young musicians. There are so many different, I think everybody has a different path. Some people, they somehow overnight blow up, and they can handle it, and that's an amazing thing. But I think for me, ideally, I would really like for it to be a constant expansion, if you will, and always something that corresponds with what makes me passionate about the musician that I am today, what kinds of pieces I'm thinking about. So right now, if I'm particularly loving, this cello sonata by Villalobos that I discovered, or and maybe pairing it with Rachmaninoff or something like that. These thoughts in my head, and I spend so much time on, traveling or just walking around thinking about these things and combinations. And okay, how can I bring music to the people around me? What role does it have? How do I share it? And all these thoughts, I think, go directly into what I'm trying to do with my career. For me, they're inseparable, and I wouldn't want it to be playing concerts for the sake of playing concerts. I think that's when people start to lose this quality. I mean, all the people that I admire the most, going back to your question about people that I admire, they always have this sense of intentionality with what they do, that there's a reason and importance. And I think especially in the kind of music that we're playing, and music that a lot of times demands, it's not necessarily there to entertain, but it demands this kind of real presence of listening. As soon as that intention is gone, I think that's when people fall asleep in the concert hall or whatever, and I think I'm very much against that.
So clearly your musical tastes are omnivorous, but do you yourself find yourself drawn most to a certain kind of music? Or that you feel most at home, or most identified with a certain genre of music?
It's kind of a cliched answer, but a lot of times it's what I happen to be working on or playing, and my tastes have changed a lot, but I recently recorded the 2 cello sonatas by Fauré with this piece by Janacek called Pohádka in the middle as sort of a program. And all of that music, to me, lies in this this vein of it has this sort of imaginatory transformational aspect, where the music, could start as one impulse, one thought, or one image, and then it just changes so smoothly that your mind goes from place to place and color to color, however each person listens, but that it has this quality of constantly evolving and never really touching the floor. And I think that was something really exciting to be focusing on, and we performed the pieces a lot, and then ended up kind of deciding that this particular program worked well, and we wanted to present it, and so then we did a recording of it and all of these things, and now I'm very much focused on the next things in front of me, different combinations. A lot of times I tend to kind of jump around from being very obsessed with one style or one period or one group or people that were living around the same time, or could be connections across time, but with a certain thematic element or something that ties the music together. And I think that's why I also really love recital programming, because it's my chance as a cellist to be sort of an artistic director of my own, curate a concert experience on a program scale, as opposed to just playing the concerto on the program that you're not necessarily involved with how it's paired with the other pieces. So the recital programming really allows me to kind of pursue certain inspirations that I have in repertoire. I mentioned that Villalobos and Rachmaninoff combination. Right now that's kind of my mind, and I'm figuring, okay, what is, there's an idea, and a lot of times these ideas, they take months to really form into something that I think really works, and something that I feel will get the message across of what's the core of this impulse. Why does this inspire me? Why do I feel like this works? Identifying those characteristics of the art, and then figuring out how to best bring it out, like in the way we play, but then also in the way it's presented.
Okay, so your first recording includes these works by Fauré. What does a choice like that say about you artistically and your musical choices? I've not heard of someone making, that strikes me as an unusual choice.
Yeah, well, it was a combination, the Fauré in particular was a combination of a few circumstantial things that happened within the past few years, actually. My collaborator, dear friend Xiaowei Yang, pianist, who we've been playing together consistently for almost 2 years now at this point. But we met at the Ravinia Festival when I was 17 years old, and I remember very clearly after that summer we eventually, I was totally taken back by her playing, first of all. The touch and the sound. I remember she played this beautiful Schubert sonata, and I was so impressed. And then eventually, maybe 2 years later, we went on a tour together, also from the Ravinia Festival. And on that tour, we played the Fauré D minor piano quartet. And it was just, I think Fauré's music is something that makes you feel like you're in another world, or that you're entering some kind of space that's very special and very unique, and you go for a little visit while you listen, and then somehow you're back, and it exists in so much in this very, very special space. And I felt the way that she was playing, I just felt transported there. And so there was that, but then there was also when I went to Prussia Cove in the UK for master classes with Stephen Isserlis, I watched him teach the Fauré second sonata to a cellist there, one of my colleagues in the class, and it was the first time that I ever heard that particular piece and that repertoire, and I was so moved by it. I mean, it just really somehow touched me very deeply. And so it was kind of the combination of those two things. I knew that I wanted to play these sonatas. And then Xiaowei and I were starting to play together. We had just played this Fauré D minor piano quartet, and so somehow those circumstances gave birth to the project. And we didn't initially know that we were going to record it. I just knew that I wanted to work on it and play it, and then at a certain point we felt that it would be a really nice thing for us to share, and also for our own development as a team, musical team, to be able to record something together. And it was my first recording experience, and kind of take the initiative to do a project like that. It was something that I felt was a great step for me to take at this point.
So I'm listening to you describe your musical life so far, and it strikes me that you seem rather even-keeled about your expectations of yourself. But, as you say, we are and can be quietly ambitious people, and we do have expectations of ourselves. How do you relate to the occasions where you don't feel like you have met your own expectations of a particular performance, whether it be a piece and its artistic aims, or your own physical active performance on a given recital? How do you recover from that?
To be totally honest with you, I don't really usually feel that way. That I mean, yeah, to be honest, I very rarely feel regret or feel unhappy with how things went. I think the only occasions that I do or when I feel like I was worried on stage, or that I had some kind of something on my mind that wasn't allowing me to really be present and spontaneous with the music and with the moment and the atmosphere. There have been certain times where I knew certain people were in the audience that I felt intimidated by, because I knew that my interpretation didn't necessarily, like align with their ideals or whatever. And most of the time I actually really pride myself on not letting that affect me, but I mean, it happens sometimes. And I think when I'm playing and when those thoughts come to my mind, and then I don't feel as in the moment, when I'm not able to completely forget about myself, then I kind of do feel bad, because I feel like it was a missed opportunity for the music. That if I was thinking about something in my own head, then I might have missed an opportunity to reach someone. I think it also has to do with the way the preparation. I try to prepare to play in a way that even in a technical way, I when I'm practicing and just getting my body to be able to play the piece, the goal is that I'm not going to be thinking about it. The goal is that it's going to disappear. And so the more variables variables I can remove in that way, the better I tend to feel in the concert. So if I walk off stage and I have no idea how it went and I can't really remember playing, that's usually when I think, okay, I probably succeeded in what I was trying to do for that particular moment.
That's incredible. That's incredible. So, yes, I looked at those photos that were taken by the many people who attended the performance in San Francisco. There was Michael Tilson Thomas, and you had this look of unrestrained joy on your face. Had you been aware of how it went? Or was that an occasion where you said, well, they seemed to like it, so I guess maybe it was okay?
Well, I think that I am always very happy when people enjoy, obviously, the performances, but it's also a question of how you feel about it. I mean, there are so many people that, and maybe you feel like you've really achieved the maximum of your potential for that thing, but some, it's not for everybody, and that's okay. I think really what I'm focused on mostly is how I feel about what I did. And of course, I'm very, very, very happy when people enjoy it as well. And that's why I do it, in a sense, or enjoy is the wrong word. I mean, it's kind of in one vein, but that somebody was immersed in the piece. Let's say that, and that's important. But I think as a way of measuring how more or less successful a performance was, I try to not think too much about reception.
Mm-hmm. What about these great collaborations that you've had a chance to experience? I mean, you've worked with great conductors already. If we're going back to our discussed occasion with Michael Tilson Thomas, great musician, collaborator. What is an experience like that for a young soloist?
Oh, well, it's an amazing experience, especially because of the experience that these people have, and MTT in particular. I mean, is such an amazing, creative person that is, created so many things, not just through performance, but also institutionally, artistically. And I think his influence can be felt in so many places, and the kinds of things that he's made, like the New World Symphony, for instance, take on such a life of their own. And so I think working with somebody like that, also the way he approaches the music, he approaches it in a very broad scale. I feel like every time I've played for him, and last September, we also did the Rococo Variations. We usually meet before the first rehearsal, just the soloist and conductor, and then he'll say he'll introduce a new perspective which I just totally was not considering, or something that was not on my mind, and maybe certain elements of it may end up seeping into what I'm doing. Maybe others I don't feel like is quite natural for me to spontaneously adopt into my performance. But I think somebody like that, and working with people that are really experienced, they always have their own their own spices that they throw into the mix. And one thing that's very exciting is to kind of enter a week of concerts knowing that actually I will have left a different musician than I came, and embracing it as also an opportunity to learn and be influenced and to influence. I mean, I feel like playing with the San Francisco Symphony, for instance, the concept of sound in the orchestra, and specifically with Haydn and classical rep, they have this incredible warm quality. And so I felt, inspired to introduce some of that into mine, and then maybe also some of the things I was doing. It's always a meeting in the middle. And one thing that I'm very grateful about working with somebody like MTT is his incredible open-mindedness, and this feeling that we're putting all the elements together in order to make something unique that could only happen because of this one moment and this collaboration, something that exists as a special moment in time.
I wanted to ask you about one idea that has come up for myself somewhat with my own experiences, but for our viewers who are watching you and listening to you describe your life, and they have admiration for what you do, but they might also be a little bit envious about what you've had in your musical life, what would you say to them for wanting those same things?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I would say. I just feel like the reason we go, why do we? I think it goes back to why do we play music? And I think it's a team effort. I mean, my closest friends are musicians, and I met so many amazing people, and my dearest friends, and I just feel like we're all in it together. I mean, I think it's hard because I don't really see it that way, but I don't quite know how to answer the question, but I think that I would just say that we're all in it for the music, and we're not movie stars, we're not like pop stars, so the most famous classical musician in the world is not going to be nearly as famous as like somebody in this other field. And so if it's about that, I think we're kind of missing the point, not that it shouldn't be popular, and not that we shouldn't put an effort to include as many people as possible, but more this idea that the motivation, why play music by people that are dead? Why do that? Or and I think it's because we all feel this kind of these qualities, and that are very, very much relevant to today and very much needed. And so if we focus on that and enjoy each other's playing, enjoy going to concerts, and I think in supporting each other and not judging if people mess up, I think that's kind of, we'll all be happier if we do that.
Okay, so Oliver, if we had you back on the show in 25 years, what would you have hoped to have achieved in the next phase of your career? I mean, are these things that you really think about, or do you just go with the flow in designing, for lack of a better word, your musical, it's your life?
Yeah. Well, I hope to have made many, many more artistic connections and met many more collaborators. I really enjoyed my recording experience. I would love to keep making more recordings, and also think about the way people digest music in the modern era. How to make things, how to introduce that feeling that I was talking about of having 15 CDs and a CD player. How do we introduce that intimacy and listening and relationship we have with recordings to the modern world we live in with streaming, and I think that's something that hope to crack that issue a little bit. Of course, I would love to meet many more great orchestras and chamber musicians, and I would love to expand the cello repertoire further, and I would love to see myself also having the same the same kind of excitement that I have right now about what I'm doing. And I think if all those things happen, I would be very pleased in 25 years.
And finally, I'm wondering, do you consider yourself a lucky person?
I do. Yeah, I do. But yeah, I mean, I do consider myself lucky, and I'm very grateful for the things that I've been lucky enough to experience, and I'm very grateful for my for always kind of, at least in this point, finding myself at the right place at the right time and with the right focus. I'm grateful to my family, who were basically all musicians, but never kind of shoved it down my throat, but gave me all these amazing, my parents, when I was little, I always tell this story that when I was maybe 3 or 4 years old, they wouldn't hire a babysitter for me. Like, I would go and I would sit in orchestra rehearsals for like over 2 hours. And at first, I remember, I was always very well-behaved kid and quiet, and so they could do that, and it was fun, and I wouldn't complain. And I remember at first it was really boring, but I think in retrospect, all those hours of kind of hearing Mahler and just being totally immersed, I'm so grateful for that. And yeah, so I do consider myself lucky, but I think an important thing is to be able to identify your luck. I think work with your circumstances. I mean, certainly there have also been things that haven't been ideal, but spinning things in a way that work for you, and yeah, that's all I have to say about that.
Oliver, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for sharing these insights into your musical life, and I look forward to many more decades of hearing you grow as a musician.
Thanks.
Thank you so much. Awesome. It was fun. Yes.